Peace, 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 peace. Welcome back to the station or network, everyone. Peace and blessings to every man, woman, and child. Peace and blessings to all mankind in general. I hope everyone's doing well. If not, I hope it gets better soon. Remember, positivity over negativity. Think right, love right, reflect right, live right, do right, be right. You know who it is. It's your guy. Back on the slide, no reason to ask why. Brother Henry Hank, Soul Conscious, number 4,400 or 4,400. As usual, I'm back in time once again. You know who it is, you know what time it is, with another pristine, fine, genuine new video. We're diving right in, continuing where we left off about last time. Section 9 of the Army on the March from Tung Tzu's Art of War. As I said, I know it's a little tedious, but bear with me in the coming days and weeks. Once this I know this is going to be the longest mini series of mini videos I've done so far, but I know it's tedious, but it's beneficial because there's a lot we can learn. Even though it was written some time ago in the past, there are still some aspects that we can use to add to our arsenal in the more modern times. And at the end of the mini series, I'm going to add an extra part, a review, or a queen, where I will go into certain parts of that to explain further. So let's continue up point 1 of section 9 of Sun Tzu's Art of War, the Army on the March, section of part 9. Sun Tzu said, point 1, pardon me. Sorry about that. Pardon me. Point 1. Sun Tzu said, we came now to the question of encamping the army and observing signs of the enemy. Pass quickly over mountains and keep in the neighborhood of valleys. Point 2. Camp in high places facing the sun. Do not climb heights in order to fight. So much for mountain warfare. Point 3. After crossing a river, you should get far away from it. Point 4, when an invading force crosses a river in its onward march, do not advance to meet it in midstream. It will be best to let half the army get across and then deliver your attack. Point 5, if you are anxious to fight, you should not go to meet the invader near a river which he has to cross. Point 6, moor your craft higher up than the enemy and facing the sun. Do not move upstream to meet the enemy. So much for river warfare. Point 7. In crossing salt marshes, your sole concern should be to get over them quickly without any delay. Point 8. If forced to fight in a salt marsh, you should have water and grass near you and get your back to a clump of trees. So much for operations in salt marshes. Point 9. In dry level country, take up an easily accessible position with rising ground to your right and on your rear, so that the danger may be in front and safety lie behind. So much for campaigning in flat country. Point 10. There are the 4 useful branches of military knowledge which enabled the Yellow Emperor to vanquish 4 several sovereigns. Point 11. All armies prefer high ground to low and sunny places dark. Point 12. If you are careful of your men and camp on hard ground, the army will be free from disease of every kind, and this will spell victory. Point 13. When you come to a hill or bank, occupy the sunny side with the slope on your right rear. Thus you will at once act for the benefit of your soldiers and utilize the natural advantages of ground. Point 14. When in consequence of heavy rains upcountry, Point 14. When in consequence of heavy rains up country, a river which you wish to ford is swollen and flecked with foam, you must wait until it subsides. Point 15. Country in which there are precipitous cliffs with torrents running between, deep natural hollows, confined places, tangled thickets, quagmires, and crevices should be left with all possible speed and not approached. Point 16. While we keep away from such places, we should get the enemy to approach them. While we face them, we should let the enemy have them on his rear. Point 17. If in the neighborhood of your camp there should be any hilly country, ponds surrounded by aquatic grass, hollow basins filled with reeds, or woods with thick undergrowth, they must be carefully rooted out and searched. for these are places where men in ambush or insidious spies are likely to be lurking. Point 18, when the enemy is close at hand and remains quiet, he is relying on the natural strength of his position. Point 19, when he keeps aloof and tries to provoke a battle, he is anxious for the other side to advance. Point 20, if his place of encampment is of easy access, he is tendering a bait. Point 21, movement amongst the trees of a forest shows that the enemy is advancing. The appearance of a number of screens in the midst of thick grass means that the enemy wants to make us suspicious. Point 22, the rising of birds in their flight is a sign of ambuscade. Startled beasts indicate that a sudden attack is coming. Point 23, when there is dust rising in a high column, it is a sign of chariots advancing. When the dust is low but spread over a wide area, it betokens the approach of infantry. When it branches out in different directions, it shows that parties have been sent to collect firewood. A few clouds of dust moving to and fro signify that the army is encamping. Point 24, humble words and increased preparations are signs that the enemy is about to advance. Violent language and driving forward as if to the attack are signs that he will retreat. Point 25, when the light chariots out first take up a position on the wings, it is a sign that the enemy is forming for battle. Point 26, peace proposals unaccompanied by a sworn covenant indicate a plot. Point 27, when there is much running about and the soldiers form to rank, it means that the critical moment has come. Point 28, when some are seen advancing and some retreating, it is a lure. Point 29, when the soldiers stand leaning on their spears, they are faint from the want of food. Point 30, if those who are sent to draw water begin by drinking themselves, the army is suffering from thirst. Point 31, if the enemy sees an advantage to be gained and makes no effort to secure it, the soldiers are exhausted. Point 32, if birds gather on any spot, it is unoccupied. Clamor by night betokens nervousness. Point 33, if there is disturbance in the camp, the general's authority is weak. If the banners and flags are shifted about, sedition is afoot. If the officers are angry, it means that the men are weary. Point 34, when an army feeds its horses with grain and kills its cattle for food, and when the men do not hang their cooking pots over the campfires, showing that they will not return to their tents, you may know that they are determined to fight to the death. Point 35, the sight of men whispering together in small knots or speaking in subdued tone points to disaffection amongst the rank and file. Point 36, too frequent rewards signify that the enemy is at the end of his resources. Too many punishments portray a condition of dire distress. Point 37, to begin by bluster, but afterwards to take fright at the enemy's numbers shows a supreme lack of intelligence. Point 38, when envoys are sent with compliments in their mouths, it is a sign that the enemy wishes for a truce. Point 39, if the enemy's troops march up angrily and remain facing ours for a long time without either joining battle or taking themselves off again, the situation is one that demands great vigilance and circumspection. Point 40, if our troops are no more in number than the enemy, that is amply sufficient. It only means that no direct attack can be made. What we can do is simply to concentrate all our available strength, keep a close watch on the enemy, and obtain reinforcements. Point 41. He who exercises no forethought but makes light of his opponents is sure to be captured by them. Point 42. If soldiers are punished before they have grown attached to you, they will not prove submissive. And unless submissive, then will be practically useless. If, when the soldiers have become attached to you, punishments are not enforced, they will still be unless. Point 43, therefore soldiers must be treated in the first instance with humanity, but kept under control by means of iron discipline. This is a certain road to victory. Point 44, if in training soldiers' commands are habitually enforced, the army will be well disciplined. If not, its discipline will be bad. Point 45, if a general shows confidence in his men but always insists on orders being obeyed, the gain will be mutual. Point 10, or part 10, the terrain. Point 1 of part 10. Sun Tzu said, we may distinguish 6 kinds of terrain. 1, terrain, to wit: 1, accessible ground; 2, entangling ground; 3, temporizing ground; 4, narrow passes; 5, precipitous heights; 6, positions at a great distance from the enemy. Point 2, ground which can be freely traversed by both sides is called accessible. Point 3, with regard to ground of this nature, be before the enemy and occupying the raised and sunny spots, and carefully guard your line of supplies. Then you will be able to fight with advantage. Point 4, ground which can be abandoned that is hard to reoccupy is called entangling. Point 5, from a position of this sort, if the enemy is unprepared, you may sally forth and defeat him. But if the enemy is prepared for your coming and you fail to defeat him, then return, being impossible, disaster will ensue. Point 6, when the position is such that neither side will gain by making the first move, it is called temporizing ground. Point 7, in a position of this sort, even though the enemy should offer us an attractive bait, it will be advisable not to stir forth, but rather to retreat, thus enticing the enemy in his turn. Then, when part of our army has come out, we may deliver our attack with advantage. Point 8, with regard to narrow passes, if you occupy them first, let them be strongly garrisoned to await the advent of the enemy. Point 9, should the army forestall you in occupying a pass, do not go after him if the pass is fully garrisoned, but only if it is weakly garrisoned. And we're going to pause there. I'm going to try to pick up at a point section or part 10 next time. Thank you for bearing with me. I know that the art of war is